Hi, everybody. Welcome to this very exciting session on getting a head start with the Smithsonian. My name is Rachel. This is my friend Pinky. Hi, everybody. And I have exciting news for you. It is Pinky's birthday, and she is so happy to be sharing it with you.
I really am. And with all my Smithsonian friends, too.
Okay, so as it's Pinky's birthday, I told her she could introduce everybody in this panel.
Oh,
It's her favorite thing, talking about her friends. So if you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and let you know who all is joining us today. Are you ready?
was born ready.
She's ready. Okay, so we are ready for our first slide. We're going to show you everyone that has exciting teacher tip to share with you today. Our participants include
And Kasperi at the National Air and Space Museum. Hi, Anne. Also, my friend Beth Evans from the National Portrait Gallery. Oh, hi, Beth. And Rachel Hutchison. Oh, that's you.
Yeah, that's me. I'm from the National Head Start Association, and it's my pleasure to be with you today.
Okay. Next up, we have Maureen Leary. Woohoo! Maureen is at the National Postal Museum. Hi, Maureen. And then we have Tiffany McGettigan. She's at the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. So many pretty things there. Hi, Tiffany. And then we have Emily Porter. Emily's at the National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. Did I get it right?
You did great. That's big words.
Yeah, I said them all. And then we have Julia Smith. Julia works with some really cool kids at the Smithsonian Early Enrichment Center. And last but not least, Bethany Wells! Hi, Bethany! Bethany's also at the National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. Whew, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And we do a lot of really cool stuff together. Should we tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're going to do that. You want to do this part?
Thanks, Pinks. I appreciate that. So, as Pinky introduced, my name is Rachel Hutchison, and I'm with the National Head Start Association. And it's my pleasure to tell you a little bit about the project that we've all been working on together so that all of the children in Head Start can really thrive. A few years ago, we started a program that we called NHSA in the Classroom. And that's where we live stream high quality programming into Head Start programs all across the country. If you're not familiar, Head Start is federally funded preschool with wraparound services for families who live in poverty to help them overcome that generational poverty and really thrive in life, both their parents and the kids. So as part of that, what we do is we bring really high quality programming to Head Start. This was an initiative that started during COVID, and we have seen really great results with it. So one of our partnerships was with the National Zoo, and we were able to bring the zoo to Head Start and to kids who might otherwise not get an opportunity to see those animals. That turned out so great that we decided we needed to expand that partnership and also share all of the amazing treasures that the Smithsonian has to offer with Head Start all across the country. We've been doing this for about a year and a half now, and we're very excited about where we've been and also where we are going. I think that gives you kind of the quickest overview I've ever done of the amazing work that we do together. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand the baton over to my dear friend, Emily Porter.
Thank you, Rachel and Pinky. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you, with Rachel and Pinky, and happy birthday, Pinky!
Thank
And,
you.
and all of these amazing educators at the Smithsonian that are part of a collaboration that we lovingly call Get a Head Start with the Smithsonian. So I'd love to tell you a little bit more about Get a Head Start with the Smithsonian. What is it? So it sparked from those virtual field trips, but Get a Head Start with the Smithsonian really is a co-creative collaboration between 7 Smithsonian units represented here and the National Head Start Association. So that is the National Air and Space Museum, the National Museum of American History, the National Postal Museum, the National Portrait Gallery, the Smithsonian Early Enrichment Center, the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, and the National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. So what makes these resources unique is that they are designed with the Head Start community through regular communication that we have with the team there, through community feedback loops and audience evaluation at all levels of project design. So it is defined by joyful, play-based resources and experiences that engage and inspire the Head Start community through activities and materials that span disciplines to create true early STEAM learning by harnessing all the unique talents of everybody here in this collaboration. So the Smithsonian is home to some of our national treasures, from the original Star-Spangled Banner to the Wizard of Oz's Ruby Slippers to the Discovery Space Shuttle and all of the stories that they tell. We're the world's largest museum, education, and research complex. And because these national treasures belong to all of us, we're entirely free. Everything that we do, everything that we're about to tell you about is completely free of charge, because every child, every teacher, every parent should have easy access to our national treasures. So through the resources that we create, we seek to make these national treasures accessible and relevant to children and the teachers served by Head Start, so that every child understands that not only are these objects the heritage of us all, they are objects owned, created, or related to people who started out as children, just like them. We intentionally design interdisciplinary connections that engage STEAM and SEL learning so that we can use multiple access points to engage all different styles of learners and connect with young children in a way that meets them where they are as learners and as people. So we are trying to address in this project the whole community of people that are engaged in helping young learners develop. So the young learners themselves, teachers, and their community around them, the caregivers. So we intentionally create these resources with caretaker engagement in mind, whether that's a teacher, a loved one, or a community member, and demonstrate not only how to use these resources to inspire STEAM learning for all pre-K children, but also how to translate these activities into their own spaces using everyday materials or activities, as you'll learn about later. The Smithsonian is a home to many wonderful educators, but my personal favorites are the early learning educators, and we have a rich population of them, I think mainly because we have a fantastic early enrichment center from where a lot of our ideas and our expertise spans. We believe as early educators at the Smithsonian that young children are not just cute, they are capable, creative, and courageous learners. And so we address them through 3 different prongs of activities. We have our virtual programs that are live virtual field trips to the National Zoo to spark interest and exploration in topics. They engage children and model for teachers and parents and tease a larger theme, such as family, communication, or math concepts. Then we have activities that could take place at home or in the classroom. These are play-based activities and provide guidance that from the activity steps to questions that you could ask the children to inspire child-led questioning and learning. And then we have professional development resources that are inspired by the best practice approaches that define Smithsonian early learning. They can be used by pre-K teachers and community staff, but also by parents looking to diversify or expand their learning or skill set. Next slide, please. So what is in this toolkit that we have developed for you? So we think of our toolkit for Get a Head Start as all of the resources that we have produced. We're actually quite a young collaboration. This collaboration only started a year ago in response to what is known in the community as the Tennessee Voluntary Pre-K Study. And the results of that study inspired us at the Smithsonian to ensure that children of all backgrounds and walks of life have access to high quality early learning activities and resources. And this is our big push towards that. So for the last year, we have created a toolkit of resources and just added to that with our new teacher tips that we'll talk about in just a minute. But this presentation is going to walk you through all those resources that are now in your toolkit. So we've got 6 recorded field trips to the National Zoo. We have 13 interdisciplinary lessons, STEAM lessons, based on these topics for you to use in your classroom or with your kids at home. And then we have the Get a Head Start with the Smithsonian Treasure Hunt. There's the child-facing version that has fun challenges to discover Smithsonian treasures and connect to the child's world at home. And then we have our teacher-facing version, which features quick tips using these exact same treasures to create fun and meaningful learning experiences. All right, next slide, please. So the 7 Smithsonian museums and organizations within this collaborative group represent collections that celebrate science, history, art, civics, engineering, and more. Finding the secret sauce in how we present this embarrassment of riches in a way that supports and inspires but does not overwhelm has been one of our greatest challenges. Sorry. We really hope that the lessons included in this toolkit lift up students and teachers by supporting lessons and topics that they're already doing and demonstrating strategies and tools that they can use. So what we have done is developed themes for content units that we developed them by analyzing our units' collections and expertise against standard early childhood curricula and asking ourselves, what are some of the evergreen pre-K topics that we can all support? And then what are some of these evergreen topics that we can support in a unique interdisciplinary way? These themes were workshopped and evaluated during our focus groups with Head Start teachers last year. And so our 2023-24 content units for pre-K will be math concepts, our bodies and 5 senses, identity, culture, and community, and language and communication. And through these topics, we really hope to bring resources, those high quality early learning resources, to children of all walks of life. Next slide, please. All right, so we have a couple of quotes throughout our presentation from actual Head Start teachers in our focus groups that just give you a little bit of a background into our program. So the first quote that we have is from a teacher in Sioux City, Nebraska, who said that the kids weren't just sitting staring at the screen. They were up and moving and answering questions and talking about it. Our field trips are defined by their music and movement base, and we're going to jump right in and give you a true taste of what that looks like. So next slide, and you can start the video with a segment from our field trip to the elephants.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Oh, she said yes.
Okay, friends.
Okay, that means
I'm gonna do it today.
all the friends in all the classrooms have to stand up and get ready to do the hokey pokey with Ronnie the elephant.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We're going to put our trunk in. So, friends, can you put your trunk in?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You put your trunk in, you put your trunk out,
Yes,
you put
here.
your trunk in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Okay, now I know elephants
seems
have
right.
a tail, so let's have our tail. Let's put our tail in. You put your tail in, you put your tail out, you put your tail in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Okay, now let's put our elephant ears in, friends. You put your ear in, you put your ear out, you put your ear in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Oh, I see my friends dancing. Good job.
Good job.
Okay, now the whole self, your whole big elephant self. Ready? You put your whole self in, you put your whole self out, put your whole self in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Okay, everyone, put your hands up in the air and wiggle your fingers. You do the hokey pokey, you do the hokey pokey, you do the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about.
She's so shy today. She's so shy.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
She's so smart. I can't believe how good she can dance
We
and
can
move
clap
and
on her.
listen to words and everything.
Wow. Incredible elephant.
Unmuting again. So that's the tone that we're going through with these field trips. As you can see, we're playful, we're joyful, we're getting the kids up and engaged, and we're really trying to bring that elephant right into their classroom and have them connect with it and really show them that the Smithsonian is there for them. So next slide, please. Okay, so this quote is from another one of our Head Start teachers from Chicago, Illinois, saying, "I like how teachers can connect the activity to what's actually going on in the child's life and what's going on inside the classroom. Because as we know, the true power in early childhood education is its connection to the individual child's life and experience. So we try to really work on centering the child and making the content relevant to drive each classroom resource that we create. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Bethany Wells, who has been working on all these wonderful resources.
Hello. Yes, thank you so much for setting all of that history and background up. This really is a very rich collaboration. And so there's a lot to say and a lot to share. So I'm actually wondering if we can put up the slide deck again, because I want to talk about our relevant content with the content resources, our relevant resources. So let's see, we should have a video. Is there a video there? I'll keep talking. So, the really cool thing about these content units that Emily just talked about.
I'm at the Smithsonian National Zoo in the small mammal house with my friend Mimi. Mimi, what are these?
These are naked mole rats.
Oh!
I'm going to go ahead and take one out so you can get a really up-close look at them.
Look at him. Oh, hi, sweetie. Oh.
So this one is pretty calm right now because this one specifically is very old. But in general, mole rats are a very, very busy species. They live in what's called a colony.
Colony.
A colony, which means that they have one queen.
A queen?
A queen mole rat, and then
Whoa.
all the other adults have jobs. So they are either a soldier or a worker. And the soldiers are going to be the ones who will defend the colony. And they can tell when there's an invader.
Whoa.
The workers can also tell when there's an invader, but the workers will let out a cry to let the soldiers know, and then the soldiers will come and defend the colony. The workers' roles is to help raise the young, the pups that the queen gives birth to, and also to help build all of their tunnels and chambers.
Wow, they're really busy.
They are really busy. So I said tunnels and chambers because they live completely underground.
They do?
Yes. Yeah, so they're going to use these teeth.
Look at those teeth.
You can see their teeth. They're big teeth. They use those to dig all of those tunnels and chambers underground, and that is where they live.
Wow. Thanks for sharing the naked mole rats with us, Mimi.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was one example of how we connect these incredible live animals with our content units. So as Emily described before, we have 4 content units we're sticking with in the 2023-2024 school year. And one of those includes identity, culture, and community. And so something that we have been able to do with these resources is find a way to connect the live animals to the different units. And that might seem like a bit of a jump, but as you can see in that video, it really isn't. So kids get to learn all about communities and different community helpers and the different roles people play within their own neighborhood and community. And that is just like naked mole rat colonies, believe it or not. So not only do these naked mole rats have construction workers, but they have nurses. They have people to help protect them and take care of them. And so one of the classroom resources we have is a community helper bingo sheet so that the kids can discover and really understand those different roles in their own community. But then they get to apply that knowledge to their own naked mole rat paper doll. And that paper doll has different community helper clothing options they can put on that naked mole rat. And so it's not only engaging, it's not only using zoo animals, but it's connecting to a broader theme that's important in a child's life. And it's something that a child already has personal experience with. So next slide, please. Okay, so we connect to a child's living experience through multiple ways. And one of those ways is actually through answering their questions, either live or in a pre-recorded format. So one of the quotes that we have is they hear, "Oh, that's my name," and I ask that question, and they get really excited about that. So through that quote, you can see that, yes, we actually do answer questions live on our virtual field trips, but we also have a lot of other methods that we get to answer questions because unfortunately, we can't get through all of them in one virtual field trip. So next slide, please. Perfect. So in order to further enhance and expand that dialogue, we've got a couple other formats. So yes, we have the live chat option in the virtual field trip, but we also have been creating Google Forms that we send out before the field trip takes place. And within this Google form, we have a just like a little quiz or multiple choice answer that the kids get to decide which animal they would like to see in the next field trip. And then the other thing we have below that question, multiple choice question, is do you have any questions about the animals out of the list above? So they get to pick what animal they want to see out of a list. And then they get to ask any questions they have about those animals. So we're able to collect responses and questions that way that we can then strategically answer throughout that live field trip. But we also get the opportunity to answer those in pre-recorded formats. So one of the ways we do that is through Head Start Asks, which is something we created. Perfect, thank you. Which is something we created as a way to solve all the questions we were getting. So Head Start Asks are little videos that not only answers the question that a Head Start student submitted, but they actually answer the question in an interdisciplinary way. So we have, of course, the question that is asked about the animal, and we could ask a zookeeper to answer that, but instead we have opened it up to all the wonderful museums that the zoo collaborates with in this project. And the educators at these museums actually help answer the questions using their own unique museums and museum objects. So there is a wonderful example on the next slide if we can go ahead and play that.
Hi, I'm Anne from the National Air and Space Museum. I'm here with a question from Kids First Head Start in Hitchcock, Texas. They ask, why do cats have a tail? Cats use their tails for balance. If they're moving in one direction, they can put their tail out in the other direction, and that helps to balance their weight. You might do the same thing if you're walking on a balance beam. You put your arms out, and then you can walk and balance your weight. You know, airplanes also have tails. They have a part that sticks out the back that helps to balance the weight in the front of the airplane. The tail has little wings that stick out on either side, and it also has a part that sticks up. They use this tail to help them steer the airplane and go in every different direction. That's pretty cool.
Perfect. So that was an example of one of our educators, Anne Kasperi, at the Air and Space Museum, answering the question, do cats have tails? We did a whole program about cats, and we knew that Anne could perfectly answer this question using airplanes because airplanes also have tails. So not only is that child who asked that question getting the answer, but they're also deepening their understanding in a different subject. And hopefully it's sparking creativity and imagination in other subject matters. So we have done a lot in year one, and we have been creating and testing many different things. And so after this, we needed to really take a step back and evaluate. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So something that we did is we had focus groups that included 50 Head Start teachers. And in these focus groups, we asked them what was going well, what we needed to work on, just basically trying to get any kind of feedback. And something that came up that we have been already thinking about is the need for professional development resources. So this quote says, to be able to have training from the Smithsonian is something that you could be proud of. And I completely agree with that quote. The educators here that I work with and we all collaborate with are extremely gifted at their practice, and they've spent years and years honing in their skills and really discovering the best ways to teach kids in these kind of informal learning museum spaces. And so if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So something that we did all together is we came together and brainstormed, what are the Smithsonian early learning best practices? What are we really good at doing because we do them every day? And how can we show those to all these incredible Head Start teachers and give them some tips and tricks on using those learning approaches as well? And so we came up with a long list, and some of them you'll actually probably already pick up on in the quick little videos you've seen in this presentation, such as object-based learning. A lot of our resources deal with an object. In fact, all of them do. And inquiry-based learning, really wanting to make sure that the child's interest and questions and voice are the ones leading the content and learning. So it's been really incredible to come up with these, what we're calling Smithsonian Early Learning best practices. And so for the 2023-2024 school year, we are actually going to make 2 professional development modules based off of the focus group's interest on this list. So we'll see exactly what ones they wanted to learn more about. And we plan to not only create, but present those. And the other great thing about having these focus groups is that we've also been able to create a Head Start Teacher Advisory Council. And that means that while we're developing these PD resources and while we are teaching them, we can continually go back to this Head Start Teacher Advisory Council and get feedback and see where we can improve, and maybe see if there are other PD resources that we need to definitely create that are coming up. So next slide, please. So to test out this new PD, these new PD resources, we actually created a very fun, at least I think it's very fun, summer resource. And this is both for kids and Head Start adults, teachers, parents, everyone in between. So can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. What we've done is we've created a Smithsonian treasure hunt. So we've been talking a lot about all of these museums that we work with, and it's only fitting that we get to showcase each and every museum. And one way we've done that is making a scavenger hunt across the entire Smithsonian Institution, where the kids and Pinky, don't forget Pinky Jackalope, get to experience 7 different objects or treasures from 7 different museums. So Pinky, along with all the Head Start friends, get a clue, and this is all in a learning management system. So it's an online interactive website. They get to discover a clue. They get a question answer flashcard that leads them to uncovering the treasure they're looking at that day and the treasure from the specific museum. And then they get an at-home connection. And that is for our adults and for the teachers to find a way to connect these Smithsonian objects in their classroom and in their home with and back to the kids. So my colleague Emily talked a lot about how the Smithsonian should be accessible for all. And that is so true. The Smithsonian is for everyone. And so not only are we trying to bring the Smithsonian resources and objects into your home and classroom, but we're also trying to get you guys to see that you have similar objects in your classroom and home, that you can continue that scavenger hunt right where you're at and maybe find mail that has been postmarked from far, far away, just like mail that was postmarked from the moon that you can find at the National Postal Museum. So next slide, please. Okay, so the other really cool thing about this resource is that we have made a teacher version. So I said this was both for kids and adults and teachers. And it is, of course, and please enjoy the scavenger hunt. But the other thing we've made is a special professional development resource. And that is something we've been liking to call treasure tips. So in all of these objects, we have asked each of our educators to create a quick 30-second to 1-minute video explaining and giving a tip as to how to use that specific treasure in their own classroom and home. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to know, how exactly do I use a portrait in my classroom? How exactly should I use this piece of mail postmarked on the moon? And that is the tips and tricks that they are giving you in these quick little videos so that it doesn't take too much time out of your day. We all know that Head Start adults and teachers are extremely busy, but we still want them to understand that these objects belong to them and you can use them in your classroom. So these tips and tricks are very fun. And I think we have an example of a video coming up. And that example isn't necessarily from our treasure hunt because I don't want to give it away, but it is an example of a tip that our educator, Beth Emphins from the Portrait Gallery did with Pinky Jackalope. So let's see if we can see that now.
Hello, Head Start! I am at the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery with my friend Beth. Hi, Head Start. And we're going to talk about a beautiful portrait. Whoa!
Right, this portrait is of Michelle Obama. She was the First Lady of the United States for 8 years, meaning she was a leader of the whole country.
Whoa! That's amazing!
Yeah, and this portrait helps us tell her or understand her story through her pose.
Her what?
Her pose. A pose is what someone does with their body in a portrait.
Oh, okay. What is she doing with her body?
Great question. Let's mimic her pose, meaning let's do it with our own bodies. She
Okay.
has her legs crossed.
Mm-hmm.
She has one arm across her knee.
Okay.
The other arm is up with her hand under her chin. How does that pose feel to you, Pinky?
I feel thoughtful.
I think so. What are you thinking about?
Well, I'm thinking about bananas!
Perfect. Pinky Jackalope loves bananas. And so if you join us, you'll probably notice that that's her answer for a lot of different things food related. So that is just a quick example. Again, I didn't want to give away the exact treasure tips, but that's one way that you can use portraiture in your classroom and in your home. It's really simple, and it's accessible, and it's easy to understand and get your kids involved in. And so if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this has been incredible to not only build the Smithsonian treasure hunt, but to create these treasure tip videos. And we just barely finished up this professional development resource that all of you can access in the toolkit. And something that I really wanted to make sure is I wanted to highlight all of the educators who created videos for this treasure hunt. And hopefully we can have each educator talk about what object they wanted to include in the treasure hunt, and explain why or what tip they wanted to give to the Head Start teachers. So maybe if we can go back to the Brady Bunch style, perhaps, we can all chat about this incredible new, brand new, hot off the presses professional development resource. So at least for me, I see Ann Kasperi is on. She's the first one. And so maybe, Ann, you could talk a little bit about your object that you chose for the treasure hunt and also the tip you gave.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So I chose for our treasure hunt the treasure from the National Air and Space Museum, the Wright Flyer at the National Air and Space Museum. We have the original Wright Flyer, the very first airplane invented by the Wright brothers. And so this airplane, the Wright Flyer, it looks a little different from airplanes today. And so it could be a little bit of an unfamiliar object for young children. When they look at it, they might not see it looking like an airplane at all. So my tip was to take a toy airplane, something like that you might have already in your classroom, and then just compare it and then think about like what are the things that are the same about the airplane and what are the things that are different. So it's a very simple tip, but just taking a toy into the museum is one of my favorite ways to make connections from the classroom into the museum environment, an everyday object that the kids are super familiar with, and then they can really see this unfamiliar thing and make it a little bit more familiar to them. And I don't know, I can throw it to somebody else. I'm not sure what order to go in, but maybe we could go to Beth now.
Sure, let's go in order. I'm Beth Evans. I work at the National Portrait Gallery. We believe that every portrait tells a story, and what better way to engage young people in what we're learning about them through stories. So the image that we chose, the portrait, was of Marian Wright Edelman, who is one of the founders of Head Start. We have a giant, beautiful portrait of her on view. It's a portrait that connects us to the idea of a hero. What makes a hero? What does a hero look like? Not only is Marian Wright Edelman a hero to so many of us, including me, but in her photograph that's on view, she has a necklace with portraits of Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman that were two heroes of hers. And so it gives us a chance to think about who has inspired us and what we can do to be heroes ourselves.
All right, I think I'm next in the order on the screen. My name is Maureen Leary, and I am an educator at the National Postal Museum. And the object I chose for the treasure tip was a very special, one-of-a-kind object that we have on display at the museum that is a piece of mail that was postmarked on the moon. And I love this object for talking with young children because it is, as I said, really unique and special, but it also is an everyday object. A piece of mail is something that young children are probably really familiar with. And this object provides a lot of entry points for talking about a lot of different topics. It gives an opportunity for some really close looking at some of the details. There's a little bit of moon dust that was smudged onto the envelope by the astronaut. There's the postmark on it that says on the moon. So it can lead into a conversation about what is a postmark? What information does it give us? The stamps that are on the envelope were issued at the same time on Earth as the mail was being postmarked on the moon. And so that can lead into a conversation about what are stamps and what are stamps used for, what kinds of things appear on postage stamps, which is a topic I love exploring with young children. It can be very engaging, and stamps are really mini works of art that display people, events, things, places that are important in American history and culture. And so there's so many topics you can dive into by looking at postage stamps. So I thought this particular object had a lot of great things about it that can spark a lot of interesting conversation with young children.
All right. So I'm next. And thank you so much. It's been so exciting hearing about all these treasures. So for the National Zoo, we chose for our treasure our Asian elephant herd. Some of the biggest animals here at the zoo. And for our treasure tip, we wanted to share how to bring these animals into your classroom and then how to use them. So not everybody has an elephant in their backyard. We're lucky in that way. But you can bring these elephants right into your classroom, right into your home, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through our elephant webcam. And then we shared some ideas about how to use children's observations about what the elephants are doing to spark different kinds of learning. So you could mimic the movements with your body and sort of get some movement going, and then start asking questions about why it might be doing that sort of behavior, if you have ever done that sort of behavior, really, and then start getting into some of the SEL goals as well. If an elephant is flapping its ears, does that mean it's happy? And what things make you happy? And it really allows us to start tapping into lots of different kinds of learning.
I think I'm next. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany McGettigan, and I'm an educator at the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, and it's a delight to be here with all of you today. The treasure tip that I shared was related to the Hirshhorn Museum building. We have a really, really unique building. It is a giant circle with a hole in the middle, so we affectionately call ourselves a donut, which is very fun for kids. Like to think about putting sprinkles on top. But the tip that we used is to think about how, while you may not have a museum in your backyard, depending on where you live and where your kids are, there are buildings and architecture everywhere. We talked about how you can explore your own neighborhood, take an architecture walk, look for different shapes, and really think about how those shapes go together to create structures. And then the second tip that we provided was to let your kids really explore that themselves, using blocks, using different kinds of materials to create their own little mini pieces of architecture.
All right, and I will go next. So I'm Julia. I work at the Smithsonian Early Enrichment Center. And while we are not a museum, we're actually a school for infants through kindergarteners, a full-time school. All of our classes learn through objects, both everyday objects and the museum objects that we're lucky enough to have in our surrounding community. And so I talked a little bit about why bother using objects with young children. And I had a couple different reasons. The first is that children are very concrete learners, and objects are concrete. They're real. If it's an everyday object, a child can handle it and engage many of their senses as they do that. If it's a museum object, they can use their eyes, and they could maybe engage with an everyday object as they look at it to engage their senses in multiple ways. Objects also can add additional context. Children are always building on what they know. And so they can look at objects and compare them and see the way that they're same and different. I use the example of a teapot. They might look at many different teapots, some that maybe they can touch, some in a museum collection, and learn about what they all have in common, what makes a teapot a teapot. And also, objects allow children's observations and life experience to really come into the classroom. The things that they're noticing about objects and works of art, and the knowledge that they can bring from their life to objects, all of that is really important and really valid. And it really allows teachers and other children around them to kind of understand their perspective and see the way that they are looking at and perceiving the world. There's lots of other reasons, but really objects they really open up this whole new way of learning with really young children.
And last but not least, Eden Cho, who is not present with us right now, but she did do a treasure tip on her object from the National Museum of American History. And she talked about they have an incredible paper mache Statue of Liberty. And so she used that opportunity to discuss how close looking and observation skills can be applied to any object, even if you don't know anything about it or its background or even the materials. If you just sit and look, you can discover a lot about something without prior knowledge. And so that's one tip that she gave to the Head Start teachers and adults. So, phew, Pinky, did we get through all the resources?
We did great. Good job, Bethany.
There's just so many. I don't know if there are any questions because, yeah, we happen to have quite a bit. So please feel free to put those in the chat and we can go ahead and answer them. Or Emily, would we like to discuss anything else?
Sure. Just wanted to call attention if you look in the chat, you will see the website where the treasure hunt and the teacher treasure hunt are both located. So please check that out. And in the treasure hunt, the teacher-facing version of it, you'll also find, in addition to the videos, great resources from each museum that can connect you to even more resources for your pre-K learners. So we really hope that you check those out. Sort of waiting to see if any more questions come in. But while we wait for those to come in, just to follow up that we will, as Bethany said, we will be doing 2 professional development modules this year on one of those topics of Smithsonian early learning best practices. So we are currently working on that, building out that schedule now, and we really hope that you keep an eye on our website, and we will be broadcasting that out in a lot of different ways because we really want to make sure this PD fits to what you teachers need. So please be on the lookout for that. And then, Pinky, are our field trips available to be registered for now already? Or is that coming soon?
Thanks.
Well, they're just about ready. I think they're baking in the oven, Emily.
All
We'll
right.
have all of our virtual field trips available with dates and times very soon. You can always go to NHSA's website and Google the NHSA in the classroom page. We'll go ahead and provide that to them. Yeah, Emily?
Yep.
So NHSA in the classroom and the zoo, and you can sign up to get updates from us, and then you'll always know everything that we've got cooking up.
All right. Thank you, Rachel and Pinky. And we just got a question. That's a fantastic question and one that we're actually so excited to answer. Are there any resources for English language learners? So the first thing I want to address is that this coming school year, we will actually be providing our virtual field trips in both English and Spanish. So we're very excited about that. We'll be live translating those. And then we'll be translating all of our classroom resources into Spanish. And we do have Beth and Maureen are our Spanish speaking experts. So they have been helping us translate those. And we did have a Spanish speaking, primarily Spanish speaking focus group as well. All right. And then we also have a question of, let's see, is the complete toolkit available? All right. So to that, yes, absolutely. That is all those resources, all those recorded field trips, the classroom resources, the treasure hunt, those are all available on that website that Julia shared, the Get a Head Start with the Smithsonian website, in the chat. You can find all those links there, and that pulls together everything, all the themes. And then, is access available for non-Head Start and pre-K teachers, such as a kindergarten teacher? Absolutely. So as I said, all of our resources are free and available for use by anybody who finds them useful. We've had teachers from all across the elementary age range use some of these activities. And I'm sort of ask my fellow panelists, I know a lot of these strategies are some that you use with all elementary students, correct? All right, great. Okay.
I think I just would love to just highlight again that one of the things about these teacher tips is that we did these focus groups, as Emily was mentioning and Bethany were mentioning, and that the focus groups really helped to inform how and what topics we were going to do, and also the format. So this idea of doing these short videos came right out of that's what the teachers who we talked to said they had time for. So we're trying to respond in that way to say, okay, we can do these little short snippets that will help. You can get them in a little bite and then another snack, and keep snacking till you're full. So hopefully we'll have more of these resources available. So we have these ones now, but we're going to keep adding on additional ones. So look out for those. Come back and see us again.
Great, thank you, Anne. And yes, absolutely, please come back and see us again. That website again, Julie, if you wouldn't mind dropping it in the chat again, that's going to be your one-stop shop for everything related to this program. You can sign up for virtual field trips there. You can access the recorded field trips. You can see the short bite videos, get the classroom resources, and see the PD. We also have a link from Rachel for the National Head Start Association's website as well, if you could share that too. So we want to get these resources in your hands. These educators that are part of this collaboration are so inspiring, and I cannot wait to see what they help us create for this next year. Again, math concepts, identity, culture, and community, our bodies and the five senses, language and communication. I'm in awe of them every day, and I can't wait to see what they come up with for these.
I guess last but not least, just a big thank you to everyone who came to hear us speak. And I cannot wait for this upcoming school year. And hopefully you'll be one of those viewers now. I'm so excited. And also thank you to all my colleagues as well.